dangerous than the one who pushed her. Because when a woman finally understands who broke her, she becomes capable of breaking empires. I walked back into the hospital with a new fire burning inside me. Every step echoed with a certainty I had never felt before. Thaddeus looked up when I entered, his breath shallow, his body weak, but his eyes carried something I had never seen in him: relief and fear. Because he knew something I still didn't understand fully, that justice comes with a price. They won't let you walk away, he murmured. And I won't walk away, I answered, placing the box on the small table beside him. Not this time. He wanted to speak, but exhaustion pulled at his body like invisible ropes. Save your strength, I said softly. We still have a long way to go, and I want you alive when it ends. I didn't know if that was a promise or a prayer. That same evening, as the sun began dying behind the hospital windows, I stepped outside to clear my thoughts. I walked toward the small bench near the emergency entrance. The breeze was cold, cutting through my sleeves, but I needed air. I needed space to let the truth settle in. That was when a man sat beside me. I hadn't heard him approach. He was dressed too simply to draw attention, yet too neatly to be just another passerby. He didn't look at me at first. He simply said, in a low voice, "You shouldn't have opened that box." My spine turned to ice. I didn't answer. I didn't move. He finally looked at me. His eyes were calm, dead calm. "You were supposed to stay ignorant," he said. "We respected that for years." I clenched my fists to stop the trembling. "Respect is not the word you're looking for," I replied coldly. "You destroyed my life." He smiled lightly, as if my pain were a small detail in a larger board game. "You survived," he said. "That's more than most can say." I felt my heart pound so loudly I thought the whole hospital could hear it. "What do you want?" I asked. He leaned back, relaxing. "To warn you," he paused, examining my face as if searching for cracks. "Put the box back where you found it. Forget the documents. Walk away. If you do, this ends quietly. And if I don't," his smile faded, "then you will learn why your husband made the choices he made." He stood up without haste, without fear, without looking back. A man who knew that behind him walked the weight of untouchable power. I watched him disappear into the parking lot. I didn't breathe for several seconds. When I felt my legs again, I stood up and walked back inside the hospital with a determination carved from iron. I entered Thaddeus's room and closed the door behind me. "They're here," I whispered. He opened his eyes slowly, but when he saw my face, he didn't need explanations. "They spoke to you," he said, double quotes, "yes." He swallowed hard. "You have to leave me. Take the box and run." I shook my head. I already lost everything once running from shadows. I'm not running again. His hand trembled as he reached for mine. "You don't understand, these men don't threaten, they erase." I leaned closer, "and I am done being erased." A long silence stretched between us. Then his voice broke. "Verit, if anything happens to you because of me, then it happens." I interrupted, "But it won't be in darkness anymore." I left the hospital at midnight. The streets were almost empty, the kind of silence that feels watched. I held my bag tightly, the metal box weighing more than its size. I walked fast but steady, like someone who had decided her fate already. Halfway across the parking lot, I heard the click. Not loud, sharp footsteps. Not many. 3 men. I didn't turn around. Instinct told me that turning would be the end. "Signora," one of them called. I kept walking. "Stop," another voice ordered. Firmer. I reached for the small panic button I had taken from the hospital reception earlier, something meant for emergencies. I pressed it. A loud alarm filled the night. Lights switched on. The men froze. Someone shouted. Nurses came out. Security guards spilled into the parking lot with flashlights and radios. And just like that, the shadows disappeared. Not because they were afraid, but because they understood something. I was no longer alone. I was no longer silent. And I was no longer easy. I clutched the bag to my chest and walked back inside the hospital. This time, it wasn't fear pushing me, it was purpose. When I reached Thaddeus's room again, I sat beside him and whispered. "They made their first move. Now it's my turn." He looked at me with a mixture of terror and admiration. "What are you going to do?" he whispered. I stared at the metal box. "Burn their lies," I said softly, "one name at a time." And as I looked at those documents again, the falsified signatures, the ghost companies, the lists of payments, I understood something with chilling clarity. This wasn't just corruption, it was a web built by men who believed themselves untouchable, and I was about to tear it apart. I didn't sleep that night. not even for a moment. I sat in the hospital chair beside Thaddeus, the metal box on my lap like a loaded weapon. Every page inside it felt like a confession waiting to burn the world down. The hallway lights flickered softly, nurses whispering outside, machines humming like distant warnings, but in my mind, everything was sharp, clear, focused. By dawn, I had made a decision. I stood up, opened the box again, and slid out the set of papers that had bothered me the most, not because they were incriminating, but because they were incomplete. Signatures that didn't match, dates that shouldn't exist, and a company name that was familiar in the wrong way. Valancourt Holdings. I stared at it for a long time, because I knew that name, and the only reason I knew it was because years ago, Thaddeus had sworn never to speak of it again. I placed the documents back inside and zipped my coat. The world outside was cold, fog crawling low across the parking lot like a living creature. I wasn't scared anymore. Fear had burned out of me. What replaced it was a kind of steel I had never known I carried. At 6 a.m. I walked into the city records building. The clerk barely looked up. "We're not open yet." I placed the document on the counter. "I'm not here for a stamp. I'm here for the truth." Something in my voice made him pause. He reached for the paper, squinted at the company name, and his entire expression changed. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer. He hesitated, then leaned close. "Whatever you're looking for, be careful. That company isn't real." "None of them were," I said. "That's the point." He swallowed. "I can show you something. But if anyone asks, you never got it from me." He led me down a hallway, through a locked door, and into a cramped room filled with dusty microfilms and boxes nobody had touched in decades. He searched through a drawer, fingers shaking just slightly. Then he pulled something out. A file, too thin to be important, too old to belong to the world I was fighting. "This," he said softly, "is the original registration of Valancourt Holdings." I opened it, my breath froze. There was only one page inside the file, and it didn't contain business, licenses, or signatures, or financial records. It contained a name, a single name, the founder, the architect. The beginning of everything, and it wasn't a stranger. It was a name I knew as well as my own heartbeat. Isaac, Vernham. My father. The room tilted for a moment, not from shock, but from recognition. Old memories slipped through cracks I had sealed long ago. Arguments behind closed doors, late-night whispers, business trips that never added up, and his warning the night before he died: "Never look into my past. It is not meant for you." The weight of the document pressed into my hands, heavier than any revelation I had faced yet. The clerk watched me carefully. "You understand now," he whispered. "This isn't your husband's mess anymore. This started long before him." I closed the folder slowly, deliberately. "My father is dead," I said. The clerk shook his head. "No. Men like him never really die. They leave echoes. Echoes, shadows, secrets with teeth." I left the building without another word, the file hidden beneath my coat. The morning sun had risen, but felt cold, sterile, like a spotlight exposing everything I wasn't ready to face. I walked fast, not because I was afraid of being followed, but because I was afraid of stopping. Stopping meant thinking. Thinking meant feeling. And feeling might break me before the truth did. When I returned to the hospital, Thaddeus was awake. His eyes widened when he saw the file in my hands. "You found it," he said, voice trembling. "I did, and..." I sat down slowly, the weight of what I'd uncovered burning through my palms. "The man behind all of this," I whispered, "the man who created Valancourt, is my father?" Thaddeus closed his eyes, a long painful exhale escaping him. He looked older suddenly, worn down by years of shadows he could never escape. "I tried to protect you from that," he said. "I tried so hard." "Protect me?" I laughed softly, not with amusement, but disbelief. "You married me into the very thing you were trying to protect me from." "It was already too late," he said, "long before you and I ever met." He was right. I knew it. I felt it. This wasn't a story of a wedding gone wrong. It wasn't a story of a cruel mother-in-law, or a ruined ceremony, or a hospital bed. It was a legacy, a bloodline carved in secrets, a family built on foundations meant to collapse. I stood up, unable to sit still. "So this is bigger than you," I whispered. "Bigger than us. Bigger than the wedding. Bigger than everything." Thaddeus nodded weakly. "It always was." I walked to the window, staring down at the city, streets moving, lives happening, people laughing, completely unaware of the invisible war unfolding above their heads. "Then I'm ending it," I said quietly. "All of it. Every name, every company, every lie. Thaddeus opened his mouth, but I cut him off. No more warnings, no more running, no more hiding. If my father built this, I will tear it down. He didn't argue, because he knew I meant it. Because he knew nothing in the world was more dangerous than a woman who had finally realized the truth. Her whole life had been a battlefield she didn't know she was fighting. I turned back to him slowly. Tell me everything, I said. He nodded, and then, for the first time, he started at the beginning. Thaddeus took a slow breath before speaking, as if every word he was about to say scraped against wounds that had never healed. It began long before you were born, he said, staring at a spot on the wall that only he could see. Before I met you, before any of this looked like a life. Your father? Isaac. He wasn't just a businessman. He wasn't just wealthy. He wasn't even powerful in the way most people understand the word. He swallowed, the memory choking him. He built networks. Invisible ones. Networks of favors, debts, secrets. He understood that people were easier to control when they owed him something, or when they feared losing something they loved. The room darkened, though the lights hadn't changed. He called it structuring loyalty. Thaddeus continued quietly. A system where nobody survives without him, where nobody rises without his blessing, and nobody escapes. My hands tightened on the back of the chair. And you worked for him, I said, not as a question, but as a fact I already knew. Thaddeus nodded slowly. I tried to leave once, he said. I tried to build a life outside of his shadow. That's when I met you. His eyes softened for a moment, a flicker of something real. You were the only honest thing I had. A quiet ache stretched between us, sharp as glass. But he didn't let me go, Thaddeus whispered. Not really. No one leaves Isaac Vernum, not even his own blood. I felt the words punch through me. Then the wedding, it wasn't just a disaster, he said, voice raw. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't your mother-in-law losing her temper. That was a distraction, a theatrical chaos designed to humiliate you, so you wouldn't notice what was happening behind the scenes. He lifted a weak hand, pointing toward the metal box. That day, while everyone was screaming, while the soup was thrown, while the cameras were recording the scandal, something else was happening. I stared at him, breath frozen. Your father's associates were in the back hallway, he continued. They took files from the venue office. They stole signatures. They forged documents. They used the wedding as a cover. My voice barely escaped my lips. What documents? The ones naming you, he whispered. Documents tying your identity to several shell corporations, the same corporations used for laundering, fraud, political manipulation. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. They were going to make you the inheritor, he said, of everything. I staggered backward. My father hadn't wanted to protect me. He had wanted to use me. So they set me up, I said. The wedding was never about family. It was about positioning. Yes, Thaddeus said, eyes heavy with guilt. And I couldn't warn you. They were watching me, watching everything. He coughed, struggling to breathe. They visited me 2 days before the wedding, told me to keep quiet, told me if I tried to expose them, you wouldn't leave the wedding alive. A tremor ripped through me, not fear, not shock, but something colder, resolve. I turned my back to him for a moment, because I wasn't sure what my face was doing. Rage, grief, something monstrous forming behind my eyes. They didn't expect you to fight back, he said. They didn't expect you to open that box. They didn't expect you to trace the documents. They thought you would crumble. They always thought you were too gentle to bite. I let the silence thicken. Let it choke the air. Let it fill my lungs with the truth I had refused to see. My whole life. I whispered. I thought I was escaping my father's shadow. You never escaped, Thaddeus said. You were standing in the center of it. The heart monitor beeped steadily behind us, each beat a countdown. So now what? I asked quietly, not as a plea, but as a declaration. He looked at me with a fear meant for someone already condemned. Now, he said, they'll come for you openly. They'll try to claim you, pull you into the system your father built. And if you resist, his eyes closed, they will erase you. I walked to the window again. Outside, morning sunlight spilled across the hospital parking lot. Cars, people, ordinary life. How fragile it all looked from here. How many people are involved? I asked. Politicians, he said, bankers, judges, security contractors. Your mother-in-law was just noise, emotional chaos, something loud to hide something silent. I turned back toward him slowly. What do they want from me now? His voice cracked. Legitimacy. He coughed. Your father's empire is dying. They need an heir, someone with a clean public reputation, someone the world trusts. My stomach twisted. They want to make me the face of their corruption. The queen of a kingdom built on secrets, Thaddeus whispered. A crown made of chains. I didn't speak for a long time. Then I lifted the metal box, feeling its weight differently now, not as evidence, but as the beginning of a war. They chose the wrong daughter, I said softly, deadly calm. I'm not here to inherit their empire. Thaddeus's voice was barely a breath. Then what are you going to do? I locked the box, clipped it shut, held it like a weapon. I'm going to burn their kingdom to ash, I said, and I'll start by finding the man who came to me in the parking lot. Thaddeus flinched. You don't want to do that. I do. You don't even know who he is. I stepped closer, my shadow falling across his bed. Then tell me. Thaddeus hesitated, the kind of hesitation that comes from knowing one name can change the entire course of fate. Finally, he spoke. His voice did not tremble this time. His name is Selim Vernum. I froze. The world stopped moving. Because Selim wasn't a stranger, he wasn't an associate, he wasn't another shadow in my father's empire, he was my brother. Asterisk. The word brother didn't feel real when it left Thaddeus's lips. It didn't fit inside my mind. It didn't settle into my bones. It echoed sharp, metallic, wrong, Selim Vernum, a name that should have meant blood, family, history. But instead, it tasted like betrayal. My fingers tightened around the edge of the metal box as I felt the world tilt, not violently, but slowly like a floor that had always been slanted, and I was only now realizing I'd been walking crooked for years. You're lying, I whispered, though I knew he wasn't. Thaddeus shook his head, eyes dark with the kind of sorrow that only those who have lived beneath monsters carry. He is your half-brother, he said. Isaac kept him hidden, a secret weapon, the son he groomed for the shadows, while he kept you clean, untouched, presentable. My skin chilled. A cold inheritance, a divided lineage, a kingdom built on 2 children, one crowned in daylight, the other sharpened in darkness. And he approached me in the parking lot. I said softly, remembering the calm in Selim's eyes, the eerie steadiness of his voice. He did more than approach you, Thaddeus murmured. He evaluated you. Evaluated, to see if you were ready to take your father's place. His voice broke, to see if the air had teeth. Something inside my chest cracked, a fault line splitting open. All my life I had believed my father's distance was coldness, that his silence was indifference, that his absences were failures. But now I understood. He hadn't kept me at arm's length. He had been positioning me, polishing me, hiding me in plain sight. A blade disguised as an ornament, a queen disguised as a daughter. I turned away from Thaddeus because the rage on my face wasn't something I wanted him to witness. It was old, ancient, something carried through bloodlines I had never asked to inherit. When was Selim born? I asked quietly. 2 years before you, he answered. Long enough to shape him, train him, turn him into what Isaac needed, an enforcer, a ghost, an extension of the Empire's will. And me. Thaddeus exhaled. You were the future he wanted the world to see. The future, the public face, the clean name to mask dirty foundations. It made sense in a sick, strategic way. Because daughters are underestimated, daughters are dismissed. Daughters are seen as ornaments before they're seen as threats. My father had counted on that, but he had made one enormous mistake. He had assumed I would never find out. I sat down slowly, the metal chair cold against my back. A tremor slipped down my spine, not fear, but transformation. Recognition. Selim knew who I was, I said. He knew everything. Yes, Thaddeus said. He has been watching you for years. My blood froze. Watching assigned to, he corrected. Your father placed him as your shadow, to protect you from afar, to steer you without revealing himself. My hands curled into fists so he stalked me. Thaddeus didn't deny it. Isaac believed you would accept him once the truth came out. He believed. Wrong. A quiet beat passed. He believed a lot of things that were wrong, I added. When I stood again, something in me had shifted subtly but irrevocably, like a door opening inside a dark hallway, a door that had been locked for decades. What does Selim want from me now? I asked. Thaddeus hesitated. For you to join him, he said finally. For you to take the throne your father left behind. I laughed once, a small, sharp sound. A throne built on corruption. A throne built on control, Thaddeus corrected. In their world, corruption isn't a flaw, it's a structure. I turned away. The hospital room felt too small. Too fragile, too mortal for the kind of truth that now lived inside it. Tell me where he is, I said. Thaddeus's breathing faltered. He finds you, not the other way around. Then I'll force his hand. Don't forget to subscribe, thank you.